So we feel as if the NBA are trying to phase out the black NBA players.
Yes.
There's a lesser chance that we will ever see another LeBron, another Kobe Bryant, another Michael Jordan, and ultimately another Shaquille O'Neal. There's many reasons for this, which we will get into. The number one reason that I want to say is that they're trying to stop a black player from getting as big as Michael Jordan, owning a team, and then also becoming influential within America.
Absolutely. Is the NBA trying to erase the black American player? Absolutely. There's a few things that is going on. Right now, they're trying to push the foreign player and the European player. They're trying to create a Messi or a Ronaldo of the NBA. Secondly, on a political scale, the black American player at times can be too much of an issue. So when you see a Kyrie Irving or a Jaylen Brown, how outspoken they are. They don't constantly want to deal with, all right, we got to constantly tell these guys not to say this, not to do that. What they want to do is take the genetics of the black American player when they deal with these white women, and they say, all right, now we have these biracial hybrids where they have the genetics of these athletes, but now they're going through our boule system where now they're not connected to the black American experience, but we have them as entertainers and we can use them as pawns to influence the people that's watching.
Now, I do want to say that Kobe's father was in the NBA. Steph Curry's father was in the NBA. Klay Thompson's father was in the NBA. So I don't want to start bringing up, the term like a Nepo baby in the NBA is bad, because chances are a lot of times if your father played in the NBA, you will have some good genetics to possibly get to the NBA. But what we do have now is that the NBA is starting to become a sport that is starting to go into the upper middle class range of income and of upbringing. Before, you had people like Sebastian Telfair who could come straight out of Coney Island. You had people like Derrick Rose who could come from the streets of Chicago. You had Dwayne Wade coming from the streets of Chicago. You had Michael Jordan. You had, obviously, LeBron James coming from Ohio.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
And even if all these guys didn't grow up rich, they came from humble beginnings.
Now, everyone knows that humble beginnings build character. Sometimes when you grow up a little harder, it does build character. It's not something that, I'm not saying that everybody should grow up hard, but I'm saying that these are the things that come with having that upbringing.
Yes.
A lot of people say that comedians aren't as funny once they get the money.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying? So that brings me into somebody like Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards right now easily has the most charisma in the NBA.
And they initially didn't want to market him. And
No.
if you notice, the generation that's on the Olympic team, most of them are black American players. They did not intend for the new generation to be led by a black American player, but it did, regardless of the fact. Edwards is still the best new young player
In the world.
and in the future of the NBA. And they played all these politics. And when you really look at the league, the best players are still the black American players. I'm talking about Zion, John Moran, and Edwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't want those three guys, in my opinion, to truly be the face, but they have to go with it. Why? Because they still got to make money.
Now, my question is this. Has the NBA also, in turn, destroyed their product because they want to over-push the European player? Now, we've always had the Dirk Nowinskis. We've always had the Manu Ginobilis. We've had the Ricky Rubios of the world. There's no problem with that. But when you try to push Jokic as the face of the league, you start to change the rules so that the game is not as physical as it needs to be. When players start showing emotion, you give them technical fouls. But what does that turn into? It turns into something where Jokic can't sell shoes. Luka Doncic can't sell shoes. Ratings now for the NBA are lower than they've ever been.
And they blame it on this new crybaby culture of the NBA.
Not true.
And the flopping. What's really going on is that people don't agree with Gilbert Arenas, but he was right. They've changed the NBA so the European player is not too exposed on defense.
Exactly.
And by doing that, they filled the league up with more jump shooters. They've filled the league up with people that could spread the floor instead of guys who are actually athletes that could play defense. We have kind of segued away from the athletic game of basketball, and it's more so focused on shooters. What that does is it takes out the intensity of the game. The one thing that The one thing that the NFL has is, yes, the game has gotten softer, but the intensity, the fast running, the cornerbacks, the intensity is still there. The NBA looks soft, not because of the flopping, but the athletes aren't in the game as much as they used to be.
NFL is different. They had to change that game because you had guys getting traumatic brain injuries, and
Yes.
the human beings were just too strong to be out there hitting each other like that.
Yes.
You know, but that don't mean that the NFL was ever going to get away from the speed and the strength of the game.
No.
Even the quarterbacks now have become faster. They've kind of leaned into, now you have multiple Michael Vicks in the NFL.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So now going back to the NBA,
Right.
when you look at the defense that is played, it's not the same defense that was played in the 2000s and even to some extent the early 2010s.
It's a brand new game.
Right. Now, when you look at how players are spacing the floor and shooting, one point that I want to bring up is, if you look at the bottom teams in the NBA right now, let's take the bottom 5, the bottom 3, chances are they not only play at a faster pace than the Dynasty Warriors, right? But they also possibly shoot more threes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But they're still at the bottom of the league. There's teams right now that are playing at a slower pace, like the Celtics.
Right.
And we know this from doing some sports betting.
Right.
You got teams like the Celtics. You got teams like the Bucks. These are teams that play at a slow pace, but they're slower paced teams that are at the top of the league. There's teams right now that don't shoot as much threes that are at the top of the league. Like when you look at the Timberwolves,
Yes.
when they was beating up on the Nuggets, when they was beating up on the Suns.
It's because
Well-
of their defense and their activity.
Exactly.
And their athletic perimeter defenders.
Absolutely.
And they had guys down low that could do blocks, set picks. They were moving and were active.
Right. When you look at how they completely, in the first 2 games, ran Jokic and them guys off the court.
Off the court.
Completely
And
ran them
nobody
out there.
wanted to bring up that Jokic can't play defense.
He was looking slow.
Even in the Lakers series, and I don't want to segue too much off the point because there's a point I got to cover. Anthony Davis was killing Jokic.
He was.
And it's because Jokic can't play defense. Now, I want to make one point clear, is I want to actually get on the aspect of the biracial players.
Right.
And this league really hit gold with Stephen Curry.
Yes.
Steph Curry. Steph Curry is a light-skinned player that is marketable to all races.
Yeah.
And in their minds is, all right, we can have this league filled with these biracial players where the father is black, they have the genetics, they have a white mom, which has made them of a lighter tone. So now we feel that these brown to dark-skinned black players won't be as marketable.
Right.
What if we can have a league filled with Steph Currys? Steph Curry senses, jump shooters, and defenders.
And now you look at it, and to be honest, you can't barely sell the league on a Steph Curry.
And I want to say this one last point too. We saw the experiment with the Ball brothers, especially Lonzo
And LaMelo.
and LaMelo. They really tried to push them. Now, of course, it didn't work too much because of the injuries. But you see, Zion, to me, coming out of college was a much better player. But I feel like the Ball brothers was anointed so much more quickly than Zion, even though out the gate, Zion was a complete ball player.
Bro, out of the gate, Zion's first year in the NBA, he was already a top 5 talent in the league. Already.
Yes.
He was automatically unguardable to some of the top defenders. And suddenly he came out and immediately was levels above what Rudy Gobert could guard.
Yes.
And we saw that
Yes.
instantly. There's people right now that will still argue to you that LaMelo Ball is somehow better than Anthony Edwards.
Yes.
Till this day.
Till this day.
Remember, LaMelo Ball, once upon a time, got Rookie of the Year over Anthony